everybody, welcome to Woodworking Wisdom. My name's Colwin.
And I'm Ben Beddoes.
For the last hour we've been making this lovely rustic wooden stool.
Stay tuned to see how it's done.
Okay, so we're going to turn 4 legs. I've turned 3 of them already. I just want to show you how to turn this first one. I want to show you these legs actually because this is a rustic stool, and the whole idea behind a rustic stool is not being too fussy with finish and timber selected. In this case, it's actually really attractive timber, but a lot of the time with attractive timber you get other issues, so like knots, like we have on this piece here. There's a few splits in it, but that reflects the seat top as well. We're taking a piece of timber for the seat top, which would normally be looked at as a discard, really. So if you have a few little tears, a few little cracks, a few sanding marks, in fact here we've got the bandsaw mark still where it's not gone all the way down to the diameter, it doesn't matter. In fact, it adds to the look of the piece at the end. So we don't have to be overly careful with this. The other thing that we're going to put on this one is a straight leg, so no taper on this one. I've just decided to do that. It just looks right. And we've just got a nice long tenon here. I've actually used 100mm as a mark to start my tenon. Now, it doesn't have to be tapered. It's certainly at the very beginning there's a small taper, but that section I would have said about 70mm is pure 30mm tenon. And it doesn't matter that it's the same all the way up because we're going to put wedges in the top, so we're going to splay this out into the mortise afterwards. So that's what we're going to do. So it's a fairly easy bit of turning. We literally have to just rough this down, and I'm not going to use another tool apart from the beading and parting tool. So we're just going to rough down with a rough and gouge and then do a slight finishing cut with a rough and gouge before sanding everything nicely. And again, we're only going to go up to 400 grit. I don't want to overly glaze this piece. We're going to put oil on it, and it needs to have that rustic sort of look to the piece as well. So here we are. We will have dust extraction running at some point. We're going to fairly heavily sand with 4 grits, and I'm going to turn fairly quickly as well. So when I say quickly, around about 1800 for this piece. I may decide I need to go a little bit more in a minute, but let's just get the corners off at about 1800. So rough and gouge, lift the handle to get the cut, and then nice and gently back and forward. The whole art with a rough and gouge really is not pushing down hard. If you just gently push along the tool rest, the vibration that the timber's giving the tool almost creates an air cushion along the tool rest, so that tool will move nice and smoothly. If you start pushing down hard, then you get a sort of jerky action along the tool rest. So it's quite important, especially on these small pieces. It helps keep the piece nice and even. I just need to pay a little bit of attention up here. This is where the knot is. And the other thing I'm not going to worry about doing, I'm not going to bother putting a caliper on the overall diameter, because I've cut them all to the same wood thickness. I'm just going to turn down till it's down to round, and then I'm going to leave it. It's not that precise. It's like we said at the beginning, it is a rustic stool, and it looks better with a few gnarly bits here and there. There we are. Now that's fine. Happy with that. I'm going to stop the lathe, move the tool rest, make sure nothing's touching the tool rest. Timber's oak, if I haven't said that already. There we are. So we're down to round. Now I'm going to measure that 100 millimeters. So just pop a pencil mark. Again, not overly precise, so I know where I'm going with that. So the tenon's going to be 30 mil to match the drill we use to drill the seat top. So get the rough spacing, then I can set my calipers to the drill we used. And then just with a nice sharp beading and parting tool, there we are. We've just done our measurements. Now we can take away the waste. There we are, and that is now ready to sand. So dust extractor on. We're going to sand with 4 grits. We're going to go 100, 150, 240, 400. I'm going to spend most time with the 100. I want to get rid of as many marks as possible, and then we can blitz through the other grades. So here we are. Now I'm going to sand a little bit of the tenon, not too much. I'm not too worried. I don't want a snug fit, but likewise I don't want a sloppy fit. We're going to wedge it out anyway. So that's the 100, so up to 150. $240, and then 400. So there we are. We've got a nice leg. It's got a lot of character in it. We've got some knots and bumps and lumps, a little bit of the bandsaw mark, a couple of splits running through it, and that's exactly what we want. We want it nice and gnarly and interesting to look at. And if we put those together with the others, I can grab the other legs a second. All right, all ready to go. Nothing particularly difficult in terms of turning. They're a straight spindle. We can cut the edges, the bottoms at an angle if we want to at the end. So that's the legs. Now we're going to take those next door in a moment just to do our drillings. But before we do that, we just need to turn a couple of stretchers. So there's only 4 stretchers in total, 2 long and 2 short. And these again are a very simple shape. We're going to finish them in the same way. Doesn't matter if there's a few gnarly bits in there, that's fine. We're using a 20mm tenon on both ends of both the stretchers. So it's a nice simple thing to turn. Just need to adjust the tool rest. Okay, so now we're going to work on the first little long stretcher, then the small stretcher. Don't forget, this is exactly the same piece of turning. It's going to parallel apart from 2 little bits at the end where the tenons are going to go. The tenons are going to be 20mm diameter, and I'm going to make them around about 50mm long, okay, on both. Okay, so that's all of the turning done now. We're going to take these next door, we're going to drill them and get them dry fitted before they're put to the seat top. Okay, so the legs are turned now. All we're going to do is measure from the bottom of the leg up 75mm, just to a single hole at the moment. Because the way we're going to make these is the side profile, or sorry, the front profile, we're going to have them standing parallel. So I don't need to worry about any angles at all. These are going to be drilled at 90 degrees. So if we mark 75mm up from the end, do a little mark, there we are, and put in our bradawl mark. I've already done the other 3, so now we're going to go over to the pillar drill and just drill those straight 90-degree angles, 20mm diameter. So we've dry fitted the long stretchers on the bottom. That now gives me a good position to mark the end stretchers. So I'm going to work 200 mil up, make a pencil mark. 200 mil up, make a pencil mark. This is also a good way of making sure that you're actually drilling in the right place, because otherwise you can drill back to front and things won't go together very well. So 200 mil, 200 mil, 200 mil. Then a quick bradle mark. So make sure you're standing well above the piece to be drilled. So we're drilling dead 90 to your first holes. There we are. And on these we're going to put an 8-degree angle. So the 8-degree angle is going to be that way, so that when the chair comes together, we're actually presenting a nice angle to the top of the stool. Okay, this has been worked out before, I'm not guessing. Okay, so if we dismantle this now, get rid of the stretchers. I've got my mark, so I know where I am. And we will always do several dry fits. This is not going to be just guessed and then glued. It's going to be dry fitted several times. I want to position my drill guide so I can clamp it. So I'm going to hold everything in the drill guide here. So let's get our clamps in position. Just need to make sure that I'm not going to get in the way of my leg. First leg. $200 mil up, right there. So I've already got the drill guide depth set as well. I'm going to be drilling around the wrong way. Let's turn them over. So my hole is here. There's my mark. I position that in. The drill guide has V blocks in the bottom, so it makes this really easy to get this right. Position that centrally. Make sure, of course, that your side stretcher is coming straight, and then you can start drilling. So do that again. That moved. There we are, down to the bottom of our hole. So we've got 90 degree. Number 2. Again, position. Yeah, that's good. And drill. That will give us our nice splay with the long stretchers at the bottom pointing in the right direction. I'm going to carry on now and finish the other 2, and then we're going to look or go to Ben to start creating the seat.
So we've planed top and bottom on our seat blank. We now have to drill the leg holes. Now we've already turned the frame that sits underneath, so the legs and the stretchers, and we can take some measurements off of that to mark up our seat blank. So let's have a little look on the bench here. We've got a bit of rot, a couple of bits of soft patches, but that's all part of the kind of features on this piece of timber. And we can take a few measurements off of the frame that we've made. So we know that these legs stand parallel to one another, so we can take a measurement from there. So our first measurement is going to be 330. Okay, so we're going from centre to centre on these legs. So that's going to give us our width there. Now, if we go back on the main camera there, we've got another measurement that we can take that spans this distance between the front and back legs. And on this one, it is, I think, 130. So we're going to just pull those legs together a little bit until everything feels like it's nicely settled, and that's our 130 there. So we can transfer those marks onto our piece of timber. So I'm going to move our little frame across to one side for a moment, and we can start to measure where we think these are going to sit. So what we're trying to do is we want to draw a rectangle around here. They're going to act as sight lines, especially these here and here. That's what we need to get our drill guide nice and lined up with, those 90-degree angles there. Okay, so to mark this up, we want to kind of keep away from that rot as much as possible. We've got our 330, which is can go across here, and I'm coming back as much as I can. You might need to take a couple of measurements at the same time to kind of place where the legs are going to be. Remember, we had 130 was the distance between centres on the front and back legs, and then we had our 330 on the length there. So you might need to just manipulate a couple of rules, especially if we've got this kind of material we're trying to avoid a little bit. So I think we've got an equal distance in here, so that's 57mm that side and 57mm that side. That's going to keep everything you know, spaced correctly. And just grab a pencil. So we can pop that line in. It's skipping across these bits. And don't worry about these pencil marks, we're going to carve all of these off in a moment. There's nothing really to take 90 degrees off, so your square's not going to help you here. But we can measure our 130, and I'm trying to keep it parallel to the edge of our seat blank, so you can mark that off. We got our 130 across there. Let me just get that right. And we haven't really got much to mark on this edge. We've got a bit of a rotten spot there, but I can just see where my pencil line is. So we've measured 130 back from that. Now we just need to check that these two marks we've just made are our 330 apart. So that was the measurement on the length. And then we can put another mark here. Again, always measure twice and cut once. So that's our 130. 130, and then we measure those. So we can join up these lines now. So we're going from here down to our mark here. Again, that's just to check measurements off of if we need to, as a little reference line. And then these are the important ones, the ones that go across. These are going to act as our sight lines. And I'm going to extend that right off the edge of the board. And do the same this side. Good. So we've left the drill guide. We're going to bring this one in now. We've left it at that 8 degrees, which Colwin did to cut that angle on the legs. We've changed the FORSTNER bit over from the 20 I think we used before. This is a 30mm, and we just want to mark that off with the bradawl. That's going to give us a nice little place to try and seat the point on that FORSTNER bit. Good. Okay, so goggles on. We're going to, on this drill guide, we've got that the little kind of V, and there is a line that extends front and back. So we can line that up with the pencil line that we've done. I'm just sighting it down there. We need to just bring that along a bit. Keep everything nice and straight. And then let's see where the little spur of that FORSTNER bit is going to sit. So it may take a little bit of tweaking. Again, just sighting down that line, making sure everything's going to stay nice and straight. And we may find that these break out in certain places, but we quite like the look of that. Obviously you can bring this in, but you would have to shorten a couple of the stretchers on the frame to bring that in and bring these holes closer if you've got a narrow board or you're worried about any of this kind of rot. Okay, so drilling. Let's put our drill on the fast speed. We've got our FORSTNER bit ready to go, and one last check that we're nicely aligned, and away we go. We'll do our drilling. So drill at full speed. Good. Then we need to, let's do this other side while we're in the same orientation. And again, we've got that nice straight line to line the drill guide up with. So we've got our two holes going that direction. Just want to turn the board around and we're going to do the same this side. Okay, so we've drilled our holes. Look at that clean entry hole. No tear out from that that FORSTNER bit. That's one of the Eco FORSTNER bits. We've had a little bit where the leg's kind of coming out the front here, but that's going to look really nice. And also here you can see where the kind of leg holes coming through. Okay, so we've got our leg holes drilled. We need to secure this to the bench. You know, we need a really good grip on this because we're going to be power carving this in a moment with the ARBORTECH, and we don't want this shifting whilst we're carving, because that can, you know, present more timber onto the tool. It could twist and snatch and grab, so we want to hold this really quite tightly to the bench. And remember, we're going to be working on this whole surface, so we don't want any sort of hold down clamps on top here. So a great way to do it, we've got a path system on our bench here. These are a couple of our little bench pups. So these are the smaller bench dogs. I'm just going to pop a couple there. I'm going to pop one in this side and one of our UJK wedges. That's just going to go in there. Give that a little tap from the back, and that's rock solid on the bench now. That's not moving anywhere. So a really great way of work holding without putting any clamps or, you know, big clamps on the bench, which is going to kind of get in the way of where we're working. So to carving, we're going to use the ARBORTECH power carver. So this is the power carving unit. We're hooked up to extraction, which is really good. This can be a very messy process, so we're going to make a fair bit of mess. The extraction is going to get rid of the worst of it, but we need to be mindful that this is a rotary tool taking material away, and it is going to throw some of that up into the air. We've got an air filter in here, but I'm going to use my respirator. That's going to do a great job of just keeping all the dust away from me. But it will make a dusty work environment, so just you know, be prepared for a little bit of mess, and let's have a closer look at this tool. So onto our camera 3 here. That's fantastic. So you can see we've got the turbo plane. This isn't plugged in at the moment because I wanted to show you this. Whenever you're changing discs or you know, looking at anything on the front of your grinder here, make sure it's isolated, make sure the power's turned off. This is the turbo plane, a fantastic bit of kit. It's got these really wide tungsten teeth 3 big tungsten teeth to keep it all nice and balanced. This can be used flat, so if you wanted to flatten the workpiece off, you could. I'm going to use it just at a slight angle, and it prefers to be worked between that kind of 12 o'clock, if 12 o'clock is the body of the grinder, between 12 and 3. That's its kind of sweet spot, or its balance spot. Okay, really nice tool, bit of shock absorbency on the handle, variable speed on the back here. We're going to go up flat out with the turbo plane, and then we can change that attachment to sander, and we can sand it afterwards. Okay, so that's what we're doing. I'm not going to be able to talk whilst I've got my respirator on, so you can kind of see how we're doing it. But remember, we're going to go between that 12 and 3 o'clock on the kind of face of the cutter. That's going to keep it all nice and stable. And we're just going to really gently take small cuts to begin with, get used to how the tool works, and then if you're feeling a bit braver, you can take a little bit more off. But yeah, we'll see how that works. I'm going to lose my microphone and put on my respirator. So we've power carved that now. Hopefully you saw how we were doing it. Like I say, with the tool, if you've got it in front of you like that, I tend to just tip it up on the slight diagonal, so we've got a favourite spot between 12 and 3. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now I've isolated the grinder, sorry. So it's no power connected to it. We need to now swap that turbo plane. So this lovely disc on here, we need to swap that over with our sanding disc. Okay, this is one of those kind of flex sanding discs, really great to use. It's going to kind of form around the shapes that we've already made. And don't forget, this grinder has a variable speed on it. So on the back here, we can just turn that down a bit. Let's go down to kind of halfway, see how it performs, and then we can tweak that if we need to. Okay, so changing the disc. Remember, isolate the grinder. That's really, really important, that there's no power going to it. On the back here, we've got a little spindle lock, and that will engage if we twist the turbo plane around. You'll feel that little pin drop in, and that locks that disc there. I need to put my spanner in a place where it's not going to foul on any of these tungsten teeth. So if you see, if I lay it that way, we're not going to touch our tungsten on any of those. We don't want to lay it across and then potentially chip our tungsten tooth. There should be space between those 3 teeth to be able to just undo that lock nut and take that one off. We can remove our turbo plane. Remember, if you've just used it, there could be a bit of heat through friction on that. We take out the little kind of turbine, and then our little washer as well. We can lose all of that, and this pad just screws directly onto that spindle, and then we've got ourselves a little sander with extraction. This is just going to blend any of those you know, little kind of high spots or potentially bits that I've missed. Any torn grain, anything like that, we'll deal with the sanding disc. Okay, so I'm going to pop my my respirator on again now, so that I'm not breathing in that dust. At home, make sure you're using your dust masks, you know, air filters, whatever you've got to try and reduce the amount of airborne dust. Okay, so we've done our sanding. A couple of bits I would have liked to have talked to you about as we went through, but you know, having that respirator on can't quite communicate it. A couple of things to look out for are kind of knots. They offer a bit of resistance, and they usually, if you're sanding things, they'll sit up high because effectively you're going over end grain where those knots are coming out. So we had a couple of little knots on there that we had to spend a bit of extra time and care with, and then also we've just been over with a wire brush. Let's pop onto camera 3 here. So we had a big knot at the front here that took a little bit extra sanding. We've got another one here, and you'll find that they try to sit up proud when you you know, when you're sanding, or even with the turbo plane, it offers a little bit more resistance. So spend a little bit extra time around any knots, get them flush with the rest of the piece. Any loose debris, we've got a big vein of rot that's running through this board, which looks really nice and is going to look great on the finished piece. But I just took off any kind of loose debris with a wire brush, and then of course just gave it another little sand over to make it all nice and tidy. But that's ready for assembly now. So we're going to get our legs and our stretchers back in, put the whole thing together, and then we're good for oiling.
Okay, next bit, we've done a dry fit. So all we're going to do now, because I want to put wedges in this, which we've already cut. I cut some nice white ash wedges. So what I'd like to do now is just mark where we're going to cut the legs to do the wedges. So we've dry fitted, it all goes together nicely. So I'm just going to, with a rule, put lines where I want these wedges to go. And we're just putting a little angle on it really. just to make it look a little bit different, show it up as a feature. So just angle toward the center. There we are. So I've got them sort of going in at an angle on both of those, on all four of those feet. That's done. So we can take it apart. I've been losing bits as we've gone. There's a little bit of rot on the outside. So we're going to glue things back together, add oil, all those sorts of things. So it will look beautiful once it's all finished. Obviously goes together well, which is fantastic. That means once we start adding glue as well, everything's going to expand beautifully. It's never going to come apart. If I can barely get it apart when it's dry. So I'll tell you what I will do, actually, before we go any further. Let's just number these legs, so where they come from. So number one, 2, 2, 3. Make sure I get this in the right order. So that went there. That went there. So 3. Because now you've done the angles, especially, it's important to get them back in exactly the same places that we took them out from. So all the stretches can come out. And you've got a choice now. You can either go for Japanese pull saw, put your piece of timber in the vise, and then cut your slot in there. I'm going to go straight to the bandsaw and do the job there. Okay, so there we go. We have all the splits in there, around about 50 mil long. I haven't been overly worried about getting them all exactly the same length. But that's it now, ready for final assembly. What I'm going to do first is just get everything off the bench, give it a little bit of a brush down. We'll get the glue out then, and we'll start gluing everything up. Alright then, so glue. So this is going to be interior job, so we're just using the Type 1 2, just a little dab in each. Don't worry, we will cover the whole of the joint in a second. So we're just going to make sure it's covering everywhere. You can always wipe off the excess afterwards, of course, once you put the thing together. But to start with, we can cover all over. Then we'll go for the long stretchers. I'm not going to put it completely together because we want it fairly loose to assemble into the top of the seat. Otherwise, you're never going to get it in that top area. There we go. Turn it over now. So now we've got good access to the other mortise holes. So again, do the same thing. You know, when you're using these types of glues, you've got a bit of open time, but you can't spend all day doing this because it will start swelling the fibres of the timber, which we want it to do, but we also want to make sure that it's not swelling too much. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue around these joints. Don't let it run through, just smear it around the outside edges. We're going to use wedges, like I've said already, so they will add a lot of the strength to this piece. It doesn't matter if I get glue on the top surface here either, because let's not forget this is going to be sanded back once again once we've done the wedging. This is a gnarly corner, this bit. You know, I'm not worried at all about this corner. It's soft, it's horrible, but we're going to put a lot of oil on this. It's going to absorb the oil, it's going to really enjoy it. There. So that can just disappear over there for 5 seconds. Now we're going to put the two sides in, the first section, two sides in the other one. Immediately slot that in there. And we'll bring the seat top over, because I haven't pushed anything together yet, remember. Can't do that, otherwise it'll never fit in this seat. So position everything together, and as you push that seat down, and I'm going to do this from the top, because what I want to have happen is those joints will be pushed together as we push it further down. That one's got to push down a little bit. Lovely. What we have to have happen, if you see this, the top of the joint here, you need to make sure that the whole of this piece of timber protrudes through the hole. You can't have it coming underneath the surface of this section, otherwise you're going to have a little ridge. We're going to sand back, remember, so having it proud like this is fine as long as we've got a stable base, and at the moment it's all uneven, so I need to pull that in and make sure everything's fitting. Here we've got a joint not actually engaged yet, so I need to now jiggle it around a little bit, and when we're in our final resting place, that's my time then to think, okay, let's start getting the wedges in and properly start joining things together. So let's start, just make sure we're in our holes. That was good. That was good. Now I'm going to start checking in several places. At the moment I can see we're a little bit kinked. We're straight here, okay, which is good. Something's happening around the back. Yeah, I can see immediately what that is. That's it. Now we'll tap everything in place again. Remember to come down beneath that join. Now at that point we can start thinking about the wedges. So a little bit of glue. There, we'll just do one last check, make sure we're happy with alignment, and then we can leave that now to set, and then we can cut them off and sand them back.
So thanks for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Please share. We'll see you again soon for more woodworking wisdom.